How do you strike the right balance between economic development and saving cultural heritage? That's today's Impact Debate. We're going to debate the challenge of economic progress and preserving cultural heritage next today, because Afghanistan is facing an intense dilemma over the development of a copper mine that is located in the same spot as a Buddhist site of vast historical importance. The site is called Mes Aynak, and archaeologists consider it a treasure trove. The Buddhas here are more than 1,400 years old, and this was once a thriving commercial centre, ironically because of the same copper deposits which were valuable in ancient times, just as they are now. Well, Afghanistan isn't alone in facing this dilemma. In neighbouring Pakistan, there are fears for 30,000 rock art carvings along the ancient Silk Route in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in the northern areas. They look set to be destroyed by the construction of a huge dam. Well, there are compelling economic arguments for both that dam in Pakistan and the copper mine in Afghanistan. Our Kabul correspondent Tahir Qadiry has been looking at the benefits that the mine will bring.
These ancient artifacts in the Kabul Museum are proof of just how old the Afghan mining industry is. They were made some 2,000 years ago from copper at a mine that still exists today. And this is it, Mes Aynak, one of the biggest copper deposits in the world. It's a potential game changer for the Afghan economy. A Chinese company has been waiting for more than 5 years to start excavating here. But work here is being held up by history as these archaeologists investigate the site.
And government in general, and Ministry of Mines in particular, has learned a lot of lessons from Aynak. But if you see, or if you consider, major iron ore and copper deposits everywhere in the world, even in the most, stable countries in the world, the countries with well-developed infrastructure and manpower, usually it takes 5 years, for a copper or iron ore deposit to begin the production.
Up in the north of Afghanistan, another Chinese firm is looking for oil, and this area contains around 80 million barrels. Over the next 2 to 3 years, it should produce enough, not just to supply to the local area, but even to export it into Central Asia. These workers are being protected by an army of local security guards. This area may be relatively peaceful, but the fear of an insurgent attack is always present. For companies investing in Afghanistan, it's just one more issue to add into the equation. In a block of flats in the northern town of Shibirgan, there is a glimpse of how the country's natural resources can change lives. Mr. Tajuddin and his neighbors are among a handful of local residents who have gas piped into their homes from a small local plant. He says it's made a big difference to his everyday life.
We have gas for 18 to 19 hours. In winter, we have 24 hours. It's good for cooking, and we use it for heating when we don't have electricity.
If the government could use this country's vast mineral wealth and energy reserves to replicate Mr. Tajuddin's experience on a larger scale, then maybe, just maybe, Afghanistan could begin to turn itself around. Tahir Qadiry, BBC News.
Well, we're going to discuss this dilemma for both Afghanistan and Pakistan next. Live in Kabul is Dr. Najib Azizi, who's Professor of Public Policy at Kabul University. And with me in the studios is Yasmin Lari, who's the Chief Executive of the Heritage Foundation of Pakistan. Now, one of the projects you're involved with, Yasmin Lari, are these incredible carvings that are in the north of Pakistan. Describe them for us. Why are they so important?
Well, Michelle, the issue is that these are something like 35,000 rock carvings that's something like 2000 BC period. And many of them are also the Buddhist golden period, which is 200 AD. And these are something very important because these are the only one of its kind. And
we're looking at pictures of them now. Yeah. So they're quite unique.
They're quite unique, and these were actually been documented by this fine professor from Germany, Dr. Hauptmann, and Faryal Gohar actually has got the images for us. And these are amazing sort of stories about what happened, how things were, and so on and so forth. And I think we have to look at it that these are really, they have global links. This is not only Pakistan, or it's not only Afghanistan, where you have the Greco-Buddhist period. You know, there's a whole linkage that goes on. And there are people who are actually attached to that. There are communities that get affected by this development. So we should never forget that whenever a huge kind of enterprises like these are taken up, it's lots of communities that will be displaced. And you know, there was a time when we never thought about cultural rights of people. We said development is the only way to go. But today I think cultural rights are very important. I mean, you displace people, thousands of families, and then they have no roots anymore. So we should be looking at the culture as well as, you know, the human problems that they create once we go in for these very big development projects.
Well, let's go over the border now to Kabul and speak to Professor Azizi from Kabul University. So the pressing dilemma for Afghanistan is how to save the treasures of Mes Aynak and at the same time exploit that copper mine. How do you think that balance should be struck?
See, the first point is that the Aynak copper mine is significant for the economic development of Afghanistan. The mine awards more than $100 billion, and the Afghan economy with the overflow or the outflow or the shrink volume of the foreign aid will be in a disaster in the coming years. So the Afghan economy requires the inflow of the revenue that will be generated from the Afghan mines, and in particular the Aynak mine will play a significant role in the development. At this moment, there is hundreds of the families which are getting their bread and butter due to their involvement in one way or the other way with this mine. So the mine overall plays a very important role, not only for the local villages around the Aynak, but also as a whole. It will play a significant role in the coming years in the development of Afghan economy.
So the cultural heritage, what archaeologists are calling the most incredible discovery for a generation, is a lower priority to you?
I'm very sorry, if you could repeat the question. It was very noisy, sorry.
So from everything you're saying about the value of the mine, do I understand correctly that the cultural heritage is just not that important to you?
Again, I did not got the question clear. However, there is no doubt about it that the economic significance of the Aynak mine is very important for the development of the country.
Yasmin Larry, how do you answer that kind of argument? Because it is a very compelling argument. Your rock carvings, I'm calling them your rock carvings because you clearly care a lot about them. They're in a very desperately poor part of the world.
Well, you know, the problem is this, that whenever there's a huge site of cultural heritage, that gets known. And when our friends from, you know, who are sort of look only at the economic benefits, they know that they can get out there and start doing things. For instance, the Basha Dam, it's 100 kilometers of water which will just submerge all these rock carvings, and you know, we won't have them anymore.
Is there any way of moving them?
Well, it's impossible because they're all cut in the rock, and you can't. I mean, I guess in Afghanistan there's a little bit of a hope that they can remove the things. But again, if you do remove them, still you know, you don't have the site, which is the context of that whole cultural heritage. My own submission to you know, people who really, and we want economic progress, there's no doubt about it, but there are always sites, other alternative sites, and why aren't they looking at them? I mean, they could. I mean, if there's an area which has all these fantastic mines, they will be around cultural heritage site as well. So why aren't we exploring there? Or with the dam, why aren't we making maybe smaller dams? I mean, the whole thing is that we have to look at the whole scenario in a totally different manner.
Well, let me just see if Professor Azizi can hear us and if we have any better luck getting through to him. Professor Azizi, I really want to understand, if the line permits us to have this conversation, do you not care about the cultural heritage of Mes Aynak?
See, I do understand the importance of the archaeological...
Yes, carry on. Carry on, Professor, we can hear you.
Yes, please. So the importance of this mine has...
Okay, Professor,
The importance of the historical heritage of the Ainak mine is of significance. There is no doubt about it. However, very important thing is also that for how long the Afghans have to depend on their rich history only and to preserve only the past. It is time for Afghanistan that they have to look into the challenges that we are currently facing, and in particular, what sort of future we would like to have for our children. So it is very important that we do focus to preserve, and to the best of my information, the Afghan government has invested a good sum of money in order to do the safe excavation and then the preservation of the artifacts that are coming out of this site. But at the same time, we have to realize that the challenges of Afghanistan are so massive that we cannot just ignore it because we want to have an Ethiopia or the ideal city out of the Ainak. No, we have to go with the international standards, and to the best of my knowledge, whatsoever activities are going in Ainak at this moment, they are following all the international standards, and we cannot and we must not expect beyond that, because the economic importance and in particular the role that the Ainak mine plays in the stability of the country, and then in particular in regards to the security of the region, is massive. So we have to be very realistic, and we should not try to bring new practices in Afghanistan, but whatsoever are the international practices, we should abide with them.
I'm afraid we're out of time, but very grateful for you joining us today. Professor Najib Azizi in Kabul and Yasmin Lari here in the studio. Thank you very much for coming.